To a stage without a set.
To a dressing room without any actors.
To a rehearsal room with no rehearsal.
Welcome to a theatre in lockdown. Well, it's been like this since March, and we've all missed the plays and everything that we do to produce them. Back when this all started, I asked Peter Schofield if he would write us a sonnet on lockdown for the prompter. Well, if I'd known that within 2 hours he'd provided me with a finished, polished poem, I might have asked him to write a play.
Why a sonnet? Well, I don't know, but it made me think of Shakespeare and what he would have done when the theatres were closed. At BLT, the life dramatic was halted in these past dark days. The theatre's loss was quite traumatic, with no rehearsals, no more plays. We found ourselves in isolation, in lockdown, just as Boris said. What could we do for consolation? How could we fill the months ahead? When theatres by the plague were closed, when people feared the dread Black Death, the Bard of Avon then composed his great King Lear, his dark Macbeth. So be inspired. Just think upon it, like me and Shakespeare. Write a sonnet.
King Lear and Macbeth, two of Shakespeare's greatest tragedies. Now the next poem is about another one, and you'll know it by its title, Blood and Gore in Elsinore.
There's lots of gore in Elsinore, where Claudius seized the crown. What a thing! He killed the king and brought poor Denmark down. But not alone upon the throne, the widow he then wed, and not denied by regicide, he took her to his bed.
In the castle keep, in darkness deep, the sentries had a fright. It all went bad when Hamlet's dad appeared at dead of night. It scared them most to see the ghost, so Hamlet soon was called. It passed the word of what occurred, and Hamlet was appalled.
And in his head, from what was said, he hatched a vengeful plan. He didn't fret, his course was set to kill that dreadful man. But soon afraid, he then delayed, and Claudius still went free. He stopped his task, he had to ask, to be or not to be.
And sad to say, the long delay brought havoc, doom and slaughter, and it caused to die as time went by Polonius and his daughter. By Hamlet spurned, and Ophelia yearned for respite and relief, but none was found, and Ophelia drowned in madness and in grief.
When Hamlet heard, revenge was stirred, but could he still prevail? What gloomy fate, what grievous state could end this tragic tale? Bereft, betrayed, with poisoned blade, Hamlet made quite certain that at his side King Claudius died, a bloody, final curtain.
Of course, Shakespeare's not everybody's cup of tea. Lots of people who go to the theatre like nothing more than a good thriller. In January this year, I directed Ira Levin's Death Trap, and in 2016 I brought Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution to the stage. Unlike most whodunits, neither of those plays features a brilliant detective. There's plenty to choose from. Who's your favourite?
There's Sherlock Holmes by Conan Doyle. There's Wartime Policeman, DCS Foyle. To keep you on the straight and narrow, The Little Belgian, Hercule Poirot.
In other Christie books we read Miss Marple from St Mary Mead. And when we think that all is lost, remember there's Inspector Frost.
Z-Cars on the River Mersey and Bergerac from sunny Jersey. There's Rebus, though he drinks a lot, and Taggart too, another Scot.
P.I. Spade, whose name was Sam, Vanderbilt from Amsterdam, But if you prefer your sleuths a little nearer, there's always that Northumbrian Vera.
If you want to get your man, try consulting Charlie Chan. Yes, I know that rhyme was flimsy. So what about Lord Peter Wimsey?
Oh Lord, will this list never stop? There's Kojak with his lollipop, but who will get the final vote? Columbo in his shabby coat?
Which of these will you endorse? Lewis or his mentor, Morse? It's hard, I know, to be selective, but which of these is the best detective?
Another kind of play that always goes down well is a love story. Boy meets girl, but there's always trouble before the final resolution. Now think back to my production of Much Ado About Nothing in 2012, and that play features probably the best example of warring lovers, Beatrice and Benedict. They certainly fight the battle of the sexes.
The course of true love will rarely run smooth, and the trouble one thinks or suspects is that history shows and relationships prove there's a battle between both the sexes.
And though you might feel that things should go right between couples, what really perplexes is why the young lovers must argue and fight in the battle between both the sexes.
When a boy meets a girl on the page or the stage, then the problem one always expects is that the one or the other will likely engage in the battle between both the sexes.
Has it ever been thus? Will it always be so? It's a prospect that frustrates us and vexes. And when we mean yes, will we always say no in a battle between both the sexes?
Of course, love isn't necessarily confined to the stage, or even between members of a company. But it is unusual to fall in love with a member of the audience.
The boy I love is up in the gallery. The boy I love is looking down at me. There he is, can't you see, a waving of his handkerchief, happy as a robin that sits in the tree.
Someone who made that song famous was Mary Lloyd, the great music hall star. And someone who loved the music hall was that famous English writer, Rudyard Kipling. I directed David Haig's play, My Boy Jack, about the death of Kipling's son in the First World War. Peter Schofield played the grieving father. And some time later, he wrote a parody of one of Kipling's most cherished poems. Peter called it An Alternative If, or If Only for actors.
If you can hope and yet bravely face rejection, if you can dream but not make dreams your aim, if you can cope with triumph and dejection and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can turn up for the next audition and give your all as if it were your last, or pit your talents against the competition, although it's likely that you won't be cast.
If you can understand a playwright's writing, if you can speak both prose and Shakespeare's verse, if you can cope with sound and lighting and turn up promptly when you must rehearse, if you can get to grips with motivation and learn your lines when others read the book, and deal with all the consequent frustration to play the part you undertook.
If you can suffer nerves and trepidation, but convey to others that you're quite serene, if you can step on stage without hesitation and give your best in every scene, if you can concentrate for every minute of every hour, of every run, then yours is the stage and all that's in it. And what is more, then you can act, my son.
Well, it's a bit sexist for the 21st century, But I expect Peter would say that was Rudyard Kipling's fault and not his. In any case, there are some very wise words there for any actor, male or female.
Perhaps we should remember them for when we can act again, whenever that might be. But for now, the show is over. And that's our cue for another music hall song. This one's called After the Show.
After the show is over, after the curtains fall, dark is the great big theatre, gloomy the music hall. Homeward in joy or sadness, audience and artist go. Life's a long play, but we end it someday after the show.
Thank you for watching. You know, all this madness, it can't go on forever. And before you know, we're back at the theatre. But in the meantime, please do keep dropping onto our YouTube channel just to see what everybody at Bolton Little Theatre is doing. So until we meet again, hopefully in January, from everybody at Bolton Little Theatre, have a great Christmas and a theatrical New Year. See you soon.
Well, we began with Shakespeare, and who better to end with? In 2009, I directed A Midsummer Night's Dream, and that was Peter Scofield's first appearance at Bolton Little Theatre as Theseus. But tonight, Peter's going to bring down the curtain for us with Puck's final speech. However, there's a timely change. See if you can spot it.
If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended. That you have but slumbered here, while these visions did appear, and this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend.
So, as I am an honest Puck, and if we have the best of luck, these idle times will get no worse. We'll all escape the COVID's curse.
Else the Puck a liar call. And so, good night unto you all.